Welcome everybody. This is assignment 3 of our series here. In this set, we're going to explore some variations on our basic drum beat using 8th and 16th note divisions. So I'm going to, first of all, go over to my profile because this is where I'm going to share stuff from later. And let's go to Enter Studio. Let it load up. This is my favorite part. There we go. And every time this pops up, every day you get in here, there's a tips and tricks window that pops up. I've already been in here today so far, so I already told it to go away for the day. But it is worth your time to look at the tips when you feel that you've got some time for that. Yeah, check those tips out. Okay, so we're going to go with a new project. There's my tip of the day. So yeah, when you get the time, it's probably worth it to go through and check these out. I'm just going to close them for now. So first thing, let's save this and give it a name. I'm going to call this assignment 3, as you also should. Allow others to remix. Good. Now we're going to grab our machinist drum sampler and load some samples. I'm just going to go with the same stuff I did before. I used kick 10. I used snare 7, I think. Snare 7. And hat, closed hat 4. Okay. It is worth your time to experiment with some different samples in here as well at some point. But for right now, I just want to get the lesson happening. So once again, we are going to create a note track. And that gives us our track down here. I'm going to double click, and there's my block. Make sure and slide it back to the beginning. Double click on that. Now, this time we're going to make a little bit longer pattern because we're going to have some variation. It's not just going to be kick, snare, beat 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to make my block longer, but notice that these markers here and here are still only showing one measure. This is how long my actual pattern is going to be that can be looped. So I'm going to actually not only drag the block out to be 2 measures long, I'm going to grab the marker here, there it is, and drag that out to be 2 measures long. So it's going to go all the way from measure 1 to measure 3. And that's how long this is going to be. So let's start by getting our standard drum pattern in here. Kick, snare, kick, snare. This is the same thing that we did before. And then hat, hat, hat. Okay, so we're going to have this one be based on 8th notes because this is a 2-bar pattern and because I lost my train of thought there for a second. I think first thing I'm going to do is take all these quarter note length notes, every single one of them, and reduce their length down to 8th notes. So I can see now where those spaces are in between the beats. So here's, let me get my zoom in here so I can see actually, okay, so there's beat 1, there's beat 2, and here is the division halfway in between. In Audiotool, they're gonna call that they're gonna have the 16th note segments here. This is measure 1, beat 1, segment 1 of beat 1. This is measure 1, beat 1, segment 3, but it's halfway in between. In proper music terminology, we call that spot and 1 and 2. I'm gonna actually instead of the smart, I'm gonna set this to be exactly 1/8. Okay, so what we're going to do now, hopefully you've created this. If you haven't actually made the same thing I've made, then pause this for a moment and get that in there. So this is your standard kick, snare, 1, 2, 3, 4, back and forth kind of a thing. Now, let's just have a listen to it real quick before we do anything to it. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is just drop some... I'm going to play with each of those 3 different elements individually. I'm going to do kick first. So maybe I'll just stick in an extra kick drum right there and see what it sounds like. Okay. That's got some variation to it. It adds a little interest. Okay. What if I took this kick drum and just kind of slid it to a new place? Instead of being on beat 1, it's not on the beat at all. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so you'll have to decide if you like that or not. It's got a flavor to it. I'm going to leave it as is because I want to move on. But let's play with the snare drum at this point. So maybe I'm going to take this one that's on beat 4 of measure 1, and I'm going to slide it a little early and create one after. So where the snare drum used to be on beat 4, I've got an empty hole, and I'm going to snare drum right before and right after that. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, that's got some flavor now. That's kind of interesting. I'm starting to not like what's going on here at the end. I've seemed to have added most of my variation kind of in a block here in the middle. The beginning seems kind of natural to me that it would be really solid and in place for 2 beats before it starts to get weird. But I feel like everything out here is taking too long where there's no variation. So, I haven't messed with the hi-hats yet. Let's use this spot that seems a little weird to me. And, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's take both of those hi-hats and slide them over and add one there. Let's see what that sounds like. I don't know. I've got things displaced in just the hi-hats there. Okay. I think we've got a little something with some interest to it. So hopefully you got an idea that I didn't have to I didn't do anything super specific. At this point, I'm not coming at it with this like vision of what I want the beat to be from the beginning. I'm just messing with stuff and seeing if I shake something loose that's kind of neat. What I did with the kick drum right at first was not super neat by itself, but by adding some variation in the other elements of the drum kit, I was able to get... I'm not trying to overwhelm the audience with this insane level of interest in just the kick drum by itself. It's the overall arrangement that should be interesting when they all play back together. So little variations here and there can add up to a lot. I'm gonna leave my drum beat here. Leave the loop rather to be exactly 2 measures, but I'm gonna take this block, and drag it out to be 4 measures long, so we can hear the thing repeat and get an idea of what that is. Okay, so that may or may not be something that you find really inspiring and cool and will drive the creation of your entire music track. Hopefully you are either coming at it with a vision of what you want it to be at the beginning, or you're able to shake something loose that you find really hits you in the right spot and ignites that creativity that drives the rest of your process here. Right now, though, to finish the assignment, let's do this. We've got the first loop that we're going to make. What I want you to do right now is make a second one. This is going to be at bar 5. Drag it out to be 2 measures long. Again, I didn't clone the first one. I'm making a blank one, right? So at this point, you can either again, 2 measures worth of loop here as well, not just the block, but the loop region. You can either add your kick and snare all the way through like we did before, or you can just start adding things in weird places and try and get your variation without building your sort of basic structure first. I really encourage you to build the basic structure before you try and get it weird, though, because most of this should still be in the same place most of the time, so that your audience can maintain the sense of the flow of the beat. If you take away too many of these elements from the places where they naturally would occur in this basic beat, then it's going to disorient your audience and it's going to make it really hard to follow the music. Now, if you're into super weird experimental music, a lot of times they will make that super confusing to listen to in order to disorient the listener. That's part of the artistic expression that they're making. I'm going to leave off right here. You should pause the video and make whatever variations you're going to do right here, and then extend this to be 4 measures long so you can hear the thing run twice before continuing. I'm going to continue. I'm going to assume you're going to make your variations here, not according to what I'm showing you, but experiment with it. Get some interesting things happening. Now, to continue with the assignment, I'm going to come out here to measure 9 and build myself a new block. Same thing, I'm going to extend it to be 2 measures long. Double click it to show my loop. Extend that to be 2 measures long, but this time we're going to come over here to our snap value and we're going to set it to 16th notes. So, let's zoom in on this a little bit. So here's my kick drum. And on beat 3, once again, I'm going to build this all according to my standard basic beat. And then I'm going to make a variation from there. Going to just copy these by holding Control and dragging up. So I can copy. Oh, that's not going to work. Well, I'll save myself maybe a little bit of. I don't know if I saved myself any trouble or not by copying and sliding them around instead of just penciling them in. So anyway, here's our basic beat. And instead of just being able to place on the beat or halfway in between, now we can place things. Check out what I did with the kick drum there. Stick a couple extra things in. Not sure I like that. I'm leaning super heavy on these right up against the beat spots, but I haven't placed anything exactly halfway in between beat 2 and beat 3. So listen to what that sounds like now with let me take that back out. So you can hear what that's doing. I'm going to drop a kick drum right in here. And that gives us a little more variation. So I am leaning super heavy on the kick drum for this, which has got a flavor to it. Since I've established that precedent, I think I'm going to follow through with it. I've mirrored here. I put the kick drum halfway in between beat 2 and 3. So right after my snare drum hits, I'm putting it on the halfway point. And then after my snare drum hits here, I'm putting it on the halfway point too. I think I'm going to keep that, that part of the pattern going. And then I'm going to feel free to just kind of mess with everything. Oops, I want to slide that. So I'm not aiming at anything particularly here. Let's see what that kick drum has done. Just messing with it. Okay, now let's get some hi-hats happening. See what that does, just that much. Yeah. Okay, now the fact that I've got some hi-hat interest here, I miss the interest that I could have in all the rest of it. So I'm going to have to add some stuff there. Okay, so I got it pretty thick up there. It might be too much at this point. Oops. You know what? I didn't mean to make that a snare drum, but I'm curious to hear what it sounds like. Whoa. Yeah, that's kind of neat. I think I like what happened right there before the snare drum dropped onto beat 3. So I'm duplicating that again here where the snare is going to drop onto beat 1. This is going to be a little interesting because I moved my kick drum off of beat 1. I had the kick drum on beat 1 over here. I'm probably overthinking this. I don't need you guys to be analyzing it in this way, but I'm just looking to see kind of what are what actually am I creating with these variations? I'm trying to see how the variation fits as part of a pattern. Like if you can spot a mathematical pattern that you're doing and establishing relationships and flows. Like here I'm going kick, snare, kick, and that kick is landing on the beat, right? Right here. That's something to note. And here I've got almost the same pattern except that I've delayed that kick. See if you can listen to that and notice what it's doing. Now I'm missing the interest in the snare over here. I'm going to I've established this thing where I've got the snare happening just before the beat where my kick would land. And so I think I'm going to stick that in here on beat 3. I've got a kick drum there already, and I'm not super fond of doubling up the kick and the snare. I'd like to kind of like have the power go back and forth instead of both hit at once. Although that's that's sort of a power move. And if you're looking for that power moment where you want to hit one beat super hard, hitting the kick and the snare, both will give you a little extra energy there. But I'm not looking for that at the moment. So I think in order to get my snare in that spot, I'm just going to grab this guy and turn it into a snare instead of the kick. I don't like how straight that feels right there. Everything else is so kind of janky all the way through that to have the hi-hats and everything all lined up on everything just for the one beat felt a little out of place right there. Getting some lag. I'm not super fond of this ending, and honestly, if I was trying to produce something that I was going to be really you know, this was meant to be commercial track or something that's a genuine artistic expression, I would work on this because the last 2 or 3 beats of this pattern don't feel right to me yet. They don't seem to. I like what's happening in the front. I don't like so much what's happening in the back, and I can't quite yet put my finger on what about it is not sitting right with me. But I don't want to kill your entire day with you watching me figure it out. So I'm going to pretend like we're moving on with the assignment. And this is, I'm just going to take this loop region and slide it out so that I've got exactly 4 measures there. And we can hear what that sounds like repeated without lag though. Whoa! I think my computer's chugging because I got so much stuff open. I got the recording software going and all this. So anyway, get your 2-bar length going right there. And then one more time, let's slide this over here. So you're going to have one more 2-measure block that we're going to make a 2-measure loop with. And you're going to put in another basic beat, mess it up, and then extend that so that it's 4 measures long. And this is what your finished assignment should look like. You should have one block over here that is an 8th note beat. Here's another 8th note beat, and then here's a 16th note beat, and here's another 16th note beat. So once you've got all 4 of those kind of happening, then go ahead and publish your project. Let's go up here and publish. It's called assignment 3. Others can remix. Go ahead and publish that. And then once that is finished, you can come back to your profile page, which I've got in my other tab up here. Upload. Come back to your profile page. Notice I don't see it. That's because I have to reload this page. Now I can see assignment 3 here. As soon as you've confirmed that it is actually visible in your tracks and not in your drafts, in your tracks, then once again, copy this URL and paste that as the link into the Google assignment and turn it in. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you for part 4.